In the summer of 2010, my boyfriend and I, both in our mid-20s, embarked on a getaway to my family's remote cabin in northwestern Ontario, Canada. Nestled near a mid-sized lake surrounded by dense forests, this isolated haven was situated on an island, a 40-minute journey from the nearest town. With both of us lucky enough to have time off work, our plan was to spend a couple of nights, arriving on a Tuesday night and departing by Thursday morning. The first night at the cabin passed without incident. On the following Wednesday, we decided to explore the wilderness, taking the canoe for a short ride before parking it on the mainland. We ventured down an overgrown logging road, a path that hadn't witnessed a vehicle in years. After a 2-hour hike, we settled for a brief lunch, and that's when an uneasy feeling washed over me. A sensation of being watched and followed began to gnaw at my senses. I tried to dismiss the anxiety, attributing it to the isolation and my overactive imagination. But the realization struck me: if something were to happen to us, help was far from reach. We hadn't informed anyone about our hiking plans, a decision that, in hindsight, seemed imprudent. Nevertheless, we pressed on, returning to the canoe. As I steered from the back, a quick glance behind revealed a large shadow moving among the trees, not far from where we'd parked the canoe. The second look yielded nothing, and I hastily brushed off the sighting, attributing it to the tricks shadows play in the depths of a dense forest. Back at the cabin, we enjoyed a peaceful evening, gazing at the northern lights from the dock. However, tranquility turned to tension when, in the midst of a romantic moment, a crash echoed from the nearby bushes. It sounded like a colossal creature breaking branches and twigs, just 60 feet away. We strained to discern the source in the darkness, our unease growing. "What is that?" my boyfriend queried. I confessed my ignorance, pointing out that such large animals were a rarity on the island. The creature continued its unsettling display, grunting and stomping. The darkness thwarted our attempts to see what lurked beyond. With no flashlight on hand, we fled to the cabin, where we closed everything up tightly, leaving only the kitchen window ajar. In the ensuing silence, we strained to hear any sign of the mysterious intruder. After a tense night, we awoke to daylight and thoroughly inspected the surroundings for signs of a bear. Finding none, we hastily consumed breakfast and departed the cabin. The mystery lingered, and it wasn't until weeks later that a chilling possibility crossed my mind: perhaps it was a Sasquatch. Delving into research, I discovered a history of Bigfoot sightings in the woods of northwest Ontario. Sasquatch had been known to exhibit ape-like behavior, including throwing rocks and stomping around people. The creature's foul odor aligned with reports from other encounters. Intriguingly, Sasquatch were believed to be strong swimmers, capable of island hopping. Despite my boyfriend's skepticism about the Bigfoot theory, we both agreed that the creature we encountered wasn't a bear. Over the years, we'd encountered numerous bears at the cabin, each leaving unmistakable evidence of their presence. This silent, sneaky intruder was different, eluding the typical commotion and destruction associated with bears. The unsettling realization struck me: the creature likely followed us home from our hike down the logging road. It could have been mere inches from my head, lurking and listening through the thin cabin window. The thought sent shivers down my spine. While I may never convince my boyfriend of the Sasquatch theory, the experience changed my perspective on the woods. As an avid camper and hiker, I now trust my instincts and remain vigilant when traversing unfamiliar terrain. The enigma of that night at the cabin lingers, adding a peculiar chapter to the family's history with the isolated wilderness. Whether it was a Sasquatch or some other unknown entity, the encounter remains etched in my memory. The cabin, once a sanctuary of serenity, now holds echoes of a night filled with mysterious grunts, crashing sounds, and an otherworldly odor. The remote woods of northwestern Ontario, once familiar and comforting, now bear the weight of an unsolved mystery, leaving me with a heightened awareness of the unseen and a reluctance to tread down that logging road ever again. A few months ago, at the age of 13, I had a chilling encounter that forever etched itself into my memory. It all began when my friend invited me and 3 others on a fishing trip. His mother picked us up after school, and we embarked on a journey to his cabin by the lake, nestled about an hour's drive away. The cabin itself was a mere half-mile from the lake, a seemingly idyllic setting for a weekend escape. We arrived around 4:30 in the afternoon, greeted by the serene ambience of the lake. Excitement filled the air as we set up for a day of fishing. The canoe was prepped, and a crackling fire was soon ablaze. Everything appeared normal until dinner. Burgers sizzled on the fire, and we indulged in the simplicity of lakeside cooking. As darkness settled in, we gathered around the fire for s'mores. That's when I started hearing peculiar noises emanating from the woods behind me. Snap! Twigs cracked, and an eerie feeling crawled up my spine. I tried to dismiss it, attributing the sounds to the local deer population. After all, our location was known for its abundance of these creatures. Yet, an unsettling feeling lingered. As nightfall approached, around 7 o'clock, we began packing up. My friend announced his need for a bathroom break, prompting a half-mile trek back to the cabin. One of our friends opted to wait by the car at the intersection leading to the road. The rest of us, along with my friend's parents, strolled towards the cabin. Once at the cabin, my friend and his mother headed inside, leaving us to loiter outside. We idled on a tire swing, taking turns enjoying the gentle motion. While lost in thought on a log, I heard the familiar snap of twigs again. This time, it was different. I turned to look into the woods, about 50 feet away, struggling to discern anything in the fading light. Squinting, I barely made out the silhouette of a figure. As my gaze locked onto the mysterious figure, it seemed to notice me and hastily retreated into the darkness. The sound of snapping twigs echoed as it vanished. Stunned, I relayed the bizarre encounter to my friends, but they dismissed it as paranoia fueled by too many scary online videos. Determined to prove I hadn't imagined it, I ventured into the woods where I had seen the figure. To my horror, clear and fresh footprints adorned the ground, along with crushed leaves and broken twigs. Uneasy, I retreated to share my discovery with my skeptical friends. The eerie events escalated as we walked back to the car. Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream pierced the night. It was the friend who had chosen to wait by the car alone. Panic set in as we sprinted back to find her sitting inside, doors locked, and tears streaming down her face. She recounted a horrifying ordeal. While listening to music on her iPhone, a man's hand had reached through the partially rolled-down window, attempting to grab her. In his grasp, a knife gleamed ominously. The arrival of our group had thwarted a potential tragedy. Shocked, terrified, but ultimately safe, we realized the gravity of the situation. One of my friend's parents, armed with a shotgun, played a crucial role in dissuading the assailant from further aggression. The police were called, and we hastily left the scene, the red pickup truck disappearing into the night. Upon reaching home, our traumatized friend recounted the incident to her parents, highlighting the narrow escape from a potentially deadly encounter. The weeks that followed were a surreal blend of fear and gratitude. We continued to hang out, yet the shadow of that night loomed over us. Plans to return to the cabin were shelved, replaced by the notion of a sleepover, a safer alternative to revisiting a site tainted by a traumatic event. Reflecting on that night, it's clear how fragile our sense of security can be. The woods, once a backdrop for childhood adventures, now held a darker narrative. The incident underscored the importance of vigilance, the unexpected nature of danger, and the strength found in unity. In the aftermath, discussions about safety became commonplace among us. The bond between friends tightened, fortified by a shared experience that transcended the ordinary challenges of adolescence. We became more attuned to our surroundings, less dismissive of instincts, and forever changed by the realization that danger could lurk even in the most tranquil of settings. It's a story that binds us, a chapter etched into the fabric of our friendship. Despite the lingering unease, we emerged from that night stronger and more aware. Life moved forward, but the memory of those woods, the snapping twigs, and the blood-curdling scream remained imprinted on our minds, a stark reminder of the fragility of innocence and the resilience of friendship in the face of adversity. "4 years ago, my friend extended an invitation for a weekend getaway at their cabin in Tahoe. Although I didn't know them well, I felt comfortable enough to ask if I could bring my best friend, Mark, along. The road trip wasn't overly long, just about 3 hours, making it a manageable journey. The cabin itself was a picturesque 4-story structure, complete with a basement and loft. Additionally, there was a smaller 2-story cabin nestled in the backyard. Upon arrival, a long flight of stairs led to the cabin's entrance. To the left was another staircase, leading to a sliding door on the right, opening to a path leading to the backyard. Beyond that door, to the left, was access to the basement. Straight ahead, a staircase curved left and ascended to the 2nd story. There, to the left, was a bedroom, and to the right, the hot tub, laundry room, and water heater. Continuing forward led to another flight of stairs, ascending to the loft where Mark and I would be staying. The day after our arrival, before breakfast, everyone decided to explore the smaller cabin in the backyard. Mark and I, finishing breakfast early, grabbed the keys and headed there. Climbing the stairs, Mark unlocked the door, and as we stepped inside, we noticed an open window to the left. Mark closed it, and we moved on to the balcony opposite the window. After closing the door behind us, we spent about 15 minutes chatting and enjoying the view. Realizing that the others weren't joining us, we turned around to re-enter the cabin, only to find the door locked from the inside. Initially thinking it was a self-locking mechanism, we panicked, forgetting that the keys were in Mark's pocket. It was only after a frantic moment that we remembered the keys, and Mark quickly unlocked the door. As we opened it, the same window we had closed earlier was mysteriously open again. Hastily, I closed the window, and we hurried back to the larger cabin. Upon reaching the cabin, we recounted our strange experience to everyone. Despite our unease, curiosity got the better of us, and we decided to return to the smaller cabin armed with knives and makeshift weapons. Yelling into the still open door, I warned that we had weapons, but there was no response. We entered cautiously, sweeping the first floor, but found no one. Adrenaline pumping, I led the group upstairs, only to discover an open window. That night, we all kept the strange incident in the back of our minds. Later, we devised a game involving hiding with sheets over our heads, attempting to scare those designated as ghost hunters. My turn came, and I went down to find a hiding spot. It was then that I saw it, an otherworldly figure floating past the window. Its face was pale and wide, and it seemed unfazed by our presence. My heart sank, and I ran upstairs to the living room, only for the game to end abruptly when a thrown pillow hit the chandelier. After dinner and preparing for bed, I confided in Mark about what I had witnessed. He believed me, but we decided not to share the experience with the others, fearing disbelief or ridicule. That night, around 3 in the morning, I woke up and discovered that Mark had, too. We both saw a shadowy figure ascending the stairs to the loft, a solid black mass that sent shivers down our spines. Mark casually mentioned that he heard footsteps at 3 a.m. but assumed it was one of us, falling back asleep without investigating. The next day marked our departure, and I only visited the cabin once more after those unsettling incidents. Thankfully, subsequent visits were devoid of such eerie encounters. It remains a mystery whether the cabin harbored a paranormal presence or if those occurrences were mere coincidences. The memory of that weekend, with its strange happenings and unexplained phenomena, lingers in my mind, making it a tale worth retelling. Two years ago, when I was just 12, my grandpa and I embarked on our annual camping trip to a remote cabin in the woods. It was our tradition, a week of solitude surrounded by nature. Little did I know, this particular journey would etch a harrowing memory into my young mind. On the second-to-last day of our wilderness adventure, I went out to collect water from a well. The dense canopy overhead filtered the sunlight, casting a dappled pattern on the forest floor. As I made my way back, I glanced up the hill and saw a figure standing in the distance. A man, clad in dark clothing, his features obscured by the shadows. It was an odd sight. Usually, the only people we encountered were hunters in their vibrant orange or camouflage attire. This mysterious figure left my line of sight as I continued on my path. Concerned, I approached my grandpa about the stranger. His reassurance, a casual dismissal, suggested it was probably just a hiker passing through. Despite his nonchalance, an uneasy feeling lingered. Later that day, by the creek, I encountered the same man. He stood there, a silent sentinel, watching. Fear gripped me, and I sprinted back to our campsite, unable to shake the unsettling encounter. Night fell, and insomnia, my constant companion, kept me awake. Alone downstairs, I played games on my phone in an attempt to distract myself. The window framed the darkness outside, and as I glanced up, I noticed movement. A figure, barely visible, caught my eye. I stared, and then, nothing. Back to my phone. But the quiet of the night was shattered by a slow, quiet knock on the cabin door. I froze, shutting off my phone, consumed by the silence. Another knock, louder this time. Panic surged through me. I raced up the stairs to my grandpa, shaking him awake, desperate for this nightmare to end. In a hurried, whispered explanation, I recounted the day's eerie events. My grandpa, a man of action, reached for his handgun and turned on the lights. He urged me to stay upstairs, a command I obeyed as he descended the stairs, flashlight in hand. I crept to the top of the stairs, straining to hear. A gunshot echoed through the cabin, followed by my grandpa's scream for me to come downstairs. Heart pounding, I joined him, and he led me outside. His firm grip on my hand pulled me towards his truck, urgency in his every move. "Get in and lock the doors," he commanded. The pitch-black night revealed only the light from his flashlight. He ran towards the truck, and I unlocked the door. The engine roared to life, and we sped down the path towards the road. But the truck came to an abrupt halt. Confused, I peered ahead, and there, on the road, was the man. He limped towards us, a large hunting knife glinting in his hand. Terror enveloped me as my grandpa assessed the situation. In that moment, the woods seemed to close in around us, trapping us in a nightmare. My grandpa's voice cut through the darkness, "Stay in the truck and lock the doors." His resolve steadied my trembling hands as I obeyed. He confronted the menacing figure, standing between him and whatever malevolence this stranger harbored. The flashlight illuminated the tension in the air as the two locked eyes, one determined to protect, the other consumed by an unknown malice. Another gunshot pierced the silence, and the man crumpled to the ground. My grandpa, a guardian in the night, raced back to the truck. I locked the doors behind him, and the engine roared to life once more. We left the haunting woods behind, the road unfolding before us like an escape route from a waking nightmare. As we drove in tense silence, I looked at my grandpa, his face etched with a mix of concern and relief. The gravity of the situation sank in, and I realized the fragility of our secluded retreat. The man in the woods, a specter of danger, had invaded our sanctuary, shattering the illusion of safety. Days later, when the echoes of that night still lingered, my grandpa and I recounted the events to the authorities. They investigated, but the man's motives remained a mystery. The woods, once a haven of tranquility, now held the echoes of a threat narrowly averted. That night left an indelible mark on my childhood, a tale of fear and resilience. Our annual retreat to the cabin, once a source of joy, became a reminder that even in the serenity of nature, shadows could lurk, and the line between safety and danger could blur. My name is Riley, a 16-year-old living in Australia. This isn't my first brush with the strange, but it's by far the most harrowing. Our family tradition involved spending our summer holidays at Burr and Chuck Dam, a picturesque lake perfect for water skiing. Little did I know that one fateful night would unleash a sequence of events that still haunt me. Arriving at the lake after a long, boring drive, darkness shrouded the area as we sought the cabin keys from the receptionist. Alone in the car, I gazed out the window, the surroundings seemingly ordinary. Yet an unexplainable fear gripped me. Searching for the source, my eyes fixated on two ominous red dots reflecting in the glass. Turning around, I was met with a visage straight from nightmares. Its face, pallid as the moon, sported blood-red eyes. A split jaw revealed two different lower halves, fur falling out in patches. Disproportionate and twitching, the creature vanished the moment I blinked. Trying to explain to my family proved futile, they knew me as fearless. That night, sleep eluded me, haunted by visions of the creature outside my window. The next day, an attempt at water skiing seemed like a reprieve. The lake buzzed with activity until an abrupt disturbance. Falling off, I signaled for the boat's return, but it had vanished. Alone in the water, panic set in as the island refused to draw near, defying all logic. After what felt like an eternity, I awoke on the shore, confused and drenched in sweat. Strangely, I wore only boxer shorts. Had I sleepwalked? Attempting to return to the cabin, the rocky terrain shredded my bare feet. Resting on a shore rock, a faint presence emerged by the water. Red eyes again. My curiosity overpowered fear, I called out. It didn't move, but terror propelled me to run, despite my shredded feet. Hiding behind a tree, I heard thunderous branch snaps, the creature closing in. Later, investigating its lair, I found discarded items, phones, a wallet, a pill bottle. Unsettled, I picked up a phone, inadvertently triggering loud music. The creature approached, clicking its jaw and emitting a haunting moan. Desperation gripped me as a stranger's flashlight saved me from an unknown fate. Back at the cabin, the stranger warned against divulging the encounter to authorities. Confused and terrified, I was ushered inside. My family, unaware of the horrors, tended to my wounds, and we left the next day. The man's words echoed, leaving me unsettled. Returning home, I felt a false sense of security. However, my brother claimed to see something outside his window, reigniting the fear. The possibility of the creature following us lingered like a malevolent shadow. Sleep became elusive, plagued by the uncertainty of that horrifying encounter. Reflecting on my near-death experience, I realized the peril of curiosity. It was a demon that could possess, driving one to perilous actions. My craving for answers intensified. I yearned for an extensive surveillance system to cover the woods where such sightings occurred. If something lurked there, the cameras would reveal the truth. Unfortunately, the financial constraints of such an endeavor remained a distant dream. The narrative is an eerie reminder that in the vastness of nature, unknown entities lurk. People vanish, taken by forces beyond comprehension. The possibility of being next lingers, a chilling thought that leaves one questioning the safety of the outdoors. As I share this story, the dread resurfaces. I can't shake the feeling that the creature may still be out there, waiting to plunge unsuspecting souls into a realm of nightmares. Until the mysteries of that night are unraveled, the woods remain a haunting enigma, concealing secrets that may never be fully exposed.